Hey everybody, I'm Seth V for the Knife Center, and you know what time it is? Let's get into it.
Must be new knife o'clock.
Today is Thursday, which means it's new knife day, and this new knife happens to be one I am very excited to finally see hit our shelves. This is the Hogue Ballista II. It is a compact, yet quite full-sized in some ways, switchblade. That's right, this is an automatic. It's out the side auto, powered by a button here. Flips out, nice and confident. So I said compact but full-sized, and here's what I meant by that. First of all, the blade is just 2.6 inches, which, in my opinion, makes it pretty compact. But thanks to just a straight, symmetrical, and somewhat proportionally large handle, it feels very, very full-sized in hand. And that's even kind of more so because of this nice, generous finger choil here. Yeah, in a grip, it sits naturally in two positions, I would say. You've got the one back here, kind of choked back for a little extra reach. Then you can come up into that choil and use the finger groove there, we'll call it. What's the opposite of a thumb ramp? A thumb...
Valley.
A thumb valley, sure, I like it. You can use that as well to kind of anchor your grip there as you're getting up closer to the tip. These come in at $170.96, and they feature MagnaCut blade steel. The grind here is a nice spear point, dagger style. Maybe even we could call it a bayonet, but you've got just the one edge here. Although this swedge is very thin, and you could probably, well, you could definitely sharpen it if you wanted to. I personally would advise against it because that edge is going to be awfully close to the inside of the handle there. Wouldn't want to accidentally cut yourself, of course.
Not to mention spring action.
Yeah, that thing is ready to fling that sharp edge your way. So I would leave it as is. You're going to get plenty of utility out of that one edge anyway. Being in MagnaCut, it's going to have good edge retention, toughness, and stain resistance to boot. But really this knife is all about the overall design and the details here. This feels like a dressy automatic knife. There are 3 new versions of this knife in stock at the moment. They all are a little dressy. One leans a little tactical with the all black look and G10 inlays. But this version has beautiful cocobolo wood, nice stonewash blade, and gray aluminum, or you can go for kind of a techie look with Ultim inlays. They all have MagnaCut, they all come in at $171, and they are all in stock now. I'm really glad to finally see these production versions come into stock. You know, there is a even fancier kind of custom class limited edition version, but Hogue does excellent value for being USA made and the kind of level of quality they're offering. So I definitely would argue that even at $171, you're getting a lot of value with this knife. For carry, you've also got this very elegant deep carry pocket clip. Going to be perfectly flush with the end of the handle there. It's not too obtrusive in hand, just very nicely done. Next is a kind of a relaunch that I don't know if anybody really saw coming. This is the all-new, totally redesigned LST from Gerber. It's funny to think about it now, but the LST was actually quite a revolutionary design when it first came out. The LST was the first, one of, if not the first, folding pocket knives with a lightweight polymer handle. And back when it was first released, that was a huge deal. You know, if you think about the slip joints and buck folding hunters of the time, they were all big and bulky. Yes, technically pocket knives, but not high-speed, low-drag the way we think about tactical pocket knives today. The LST, although it's really not a tactical knife, was a big step forward in modern knife production and really changed the future of the company that made it, Gerber, and the designer behind it, Blackie Collins. So, this is a knife with a lot of history, even if that history hasn't been kind of remembered so much anymore. I think Gerber's bringing it back. So there are 3 new versions. The first one is this Gerber LST Ultra. It is made in the USA, just like the original, and has a kind of whole new profile, although I think the intent here is the same as the original. This is an ultralight, ultra-capable locking pocket knife, but Gerber have gone and added some modern features with this deep carry wire pocket clip and a kind of freshened new look. The new handles are a little bit larger than the original. They are very comfortable, a touch slimmer. They have this cool kind of faceted look to them. The facets don't really give you any grip, but they do give you some tactility for your fingertips to register to. I also like the kind of indent around the pivot, which functions as a really comfortable pinch point for, you know, your utilitarian kind of steak knife grip. This USA-made version is a 2-handed knife, as you can see by its lack of hole or thumb studs, but the action's very smooth, and it's also got a really satisfying half stop. Clicks into place with great authority and gives you a little extra peace of mind as you're closing this. I also like in the closed position, just the uninterrupted shape of this. I can tell that they really cared about making this a great pocket knife. Just gonna fit in there, not get in the way, stay light, stay capable, just like the original was. So that USA-made version was $39.99, but if you want an even better value, Gerber offers 2 imported versions that are slightly smaller and slightly more affordable. This right here is the LST Lockback folding knife, 2.5 inch. Not sure if they have any more detailed name than that, but as you can imagine, we got 2.5 inches of blade. It's got a wire pocket clip as well, a lockback. We have the same half stop as the USA-made version, but we've got a thumb hole there, so this can be used easily with one hand. Pretty nice feature. I always appreciate a one-hand operating knife, I must say. So, yeah, if that's...
You said it.
Yep, and I said it. And I will say it again. These come in a bunch of nice colors. This one here is the Urban Blue. Nice kind of steel blue to the handles there. We've got the same molded facets. The texture is perhaps slightly more aggressive on this. Yeah, a touch. It probably won't make a huge difference. Nice hollow grind here on the blade. Gonna make it an efficient slicer for sure. And I like the implementation of the plunge grind with the, I guess it's not really a sharpening choil, but the way that they've ground this blade, you're gonna be able to easily sharpen the entire length of the edge throughout the whole life of, the whole useful life of this blade. Always appreciate when knife companies take into consideration how folks are gonna maintain their knives once they get into their pockets. Nice to see that Gerber has done that here. And the itty bittiest of the LSTs is this little guy, the LST Mini. With just 1.9 inches of blade and an included color-matched lanyard, you know that this is meant to be a 5th pocket knife, keychain knife, something extra small, but still very capable. I think the decision to make this blade shape a Wharncliffe instead of a drop point was a good one in this case. Allows for more kind of precision with the tip. It brings it back towards a pure utility knife rather than something you might use for kind of paring knife duty. Something this small, it's just gonna be your box opener, you know, scraper, crud cutter type of tool, and it's good to have something small and dedicated for that. Coming in at just $14.99, this is also the most affordable version. And here we're showing off the cool mustard yellow handle. I appreciate the inclusion of this lanyard here. Of course, that handle is a 3-finger affair at best, so the lanyard gives your pinky something to hold on to. A little extra purchase as you're moving this knife around. I like how you can kind of anchor it with that lanyard and then point it down to get that utility cutting done. Very nicely considered and very cool to see Gerber bringing back one of their original hits to breathe some new life into it. And speaking of keychain knives, this little guy is the Lander 6 from Knafs. Coming in at $14.99 and equipped with 4034 stainless steel. This is very much meant to be your keychain backup, you know, like that LST, not a primary knife, but something fun and lightweight and easy to have on you when you need it, so that, you know, if you don't have your pocket knife and you're out, you're probably gonna have your keys, so you'll still be able to open that package, get into what you need to get into, and get it done. The Lander 6 here goes to show you just how broadly useful the Lander's handle silhouette is. It is a surprising challenge to make a handle shape that works at different scales, you know. A big handle has a lot of different affordances to it than a small handle, so jumping between small and large and using the same shape is something that very few knives can pull off successfully, but I think the little Lander here does a pretty good job. I would struggle to even call this a 3-finger knife. I can get 2.5 fingers on here, and I have skinny fingers. But as a keychain knife with presumably a bunch of other stuff hanging off the end of it, I think it's going to do its job just fine, and that spear point blade shape is going to be easy to use for all manner of cuts. The lock here is just a simple lock back, solid, simple, and secure. These are available in 4 colors right now. We've got this blue, also black, green, and I want to say purple. Yeah, purple. Pretty cool. Pick one to suit your taste and pop one on your keys. Forget about it till you need it. Next up are 2 new seasonal releases from Benchmade. We've got fresh versions of the Bugout and Mini Bugout here in very nice looking colorways with upgraded materials across the board. So I'm gonna pick, actually it's kind of hard to pick my favorite colorway. I think from the photos I was leaning towards the Crater Blue, but in person I'm kind of digging the green, so I'm gonna go with the green for now. What we have here is S90V blade steel with crushed silver Cerakote finish. This is what they're calling woodland green aluminum handles, and the Mini comes in at $310. Yeah, I mean, it's very much still a Bugout, right? It is Benchmade's flagship EDC folder. The Mini Bugout is even more pocketable than that. It's kind of become the benchmark by which all other EDC folders are judged. You know, love it or hate it, the Bugout is a yardstick that other, you know, utility pocket knives need to measure against. And this new version is one of the best you can get. I really like these aluminum handles. They add a touch more of a substantial feel to the Bugout formula, and they look pretty sweet too. Very kind of subtle facets going on here. Nice bit of detail that doesn't interrupt the otherwise very simple aesthetic of the Bugout that works so well. And I quite like these gold accents with the green. Very, very cool, kind of, you know, Rolex coated, somewhat luxurious, but still earthy, still very usable and unpretentious. And if the Mini's too small, you can get the full-sized. Same blade materials here, S90V. The full-size version comes in at $320, so $10 more. And I like this. I like this colorway in person, but I must admit, I'm really drawn to that green one now that they're on the table in front of me. The silver Cerakote is pretty nice. I think you wouldn't recognize it necessarily from a picture, just what the Cerakote does exactly, because it looks just like a kind of a stonewash blade, but there's a cool kind of sparkle to it almost. I don't know, a glimmer, a gleam. I don't want to call it sparkly because it isn't, but there's kind of a texture there that adds a bit of depth. Benchmade has really been killing it with their colorway work recently. I think, you know, they're clearly putting a lot of effort into the special editions and seasonal variants like these to make them more elevated, special, something you'll be kind of proud to have in your collection. And this pair here, I think they nailed it. Okay, now we have a couple of classic tactical folders from Begg Knives. This right here is the One. So this was designed by Kirby Lambert and JVO Design. It comes in at $119.20 at the moment and is equipped with 3 inches, just over 3 inches of VG10 steel. And this version is rocking the orange G10. Pretty cool knife, tons of character, big bold looks with this recurve compound tanto blade shape, harpoon, all the modifiers. It's got a fuller, it's got a thumb disc, nice chunky blade stock with, I must say, very, very cleanly done grinds. One of the things that Begg Knives in particular does well is just the crispness of the grinds across the whole line. They really give it a custom look and character, despite, you know, the production price here. The grinds, I just think they're very elevated, very nicely done. What else do we have to talk about here? Well, the frame lock, or bolster lock if you want to call it, is stainless steel, which helps them keep the price down, but they've gone and lightened it by milling out some pockets on the inside. These are, they also feature a milled clip. So yeah, you know, lots of elevated details here. Got a pivot collar as well. Little touches that bring it closer to a custom design, but for 120 bucks. Now, the One's bigger brother is this new knife. This is the Seishin. The Seishin was designed by Kirby Lambert and JVO Design, and it is a flipper rather than using a thumb plate for deployment. We've got a chunky flipper there. Look at the size of that thing on the back. Doesn't protrude too far, but you've got plenty of space to grab and pull. Nice, firm, crisp detent. Sends that, almost said recurve, but a compound tanto blade. Sends that flying open. Ball bearings in the pivot for liquid smooth action. Both of these actually. You know, I've been saying that they are comparable to custom knives, and while, you know, custom knives tend to have significantly more exotic or expensive materials, whereas this has VG10 steel and a steel frame lock, the feel is custom-like. It's achieving things that usually take a lot of hand tuning and attention spent at a grinder, like the crispy grinds, like the drop shut action. Yeah, very nicely done. I particularly like these gray birchwood handle scales. They kind of bring down the tactical tone a little bit, class up the joint, shall we say. Very nice kind of hybrid thing going on here with a aggressive blade and a comfortable and classy looking handle. Next up, we've got a cool limited edition that just hit the site. A whole series of these new manual action Pariahs from Heretic Knives. 3.8 inches of Magna Cut blade steel and layered G10 handles. You can choose from a bunch of different G10 handle colors. You can choose several different blade finishes. I believe there's stone washed, there's a two-tone finish, and this black DLC. Really nicely done. When you get it in the light, you can actually see that there's still a bit of a two-tone finish to this because the primary grind here is stone washed, whereas the flats have been brushed, and you can still make that out under the DLC. It's very subtle, but pretty classy. The thing I like most about the Pariah is its tapered handle, and the layered G10 really allows that feature to shine through. So as you kind of cut through the strata of the layers of the G10, as you taper towards the end of the handle here, you can see that come through on the handle with these stripes. Very nicely done. It gives it a camouflage look, almost like a tiger stripe thing going on. And it also, I think, improves the ergonomics and the feel of the knife in hand. The taper allows the pocket clip to be a little more hidden ergonomically, so it's not bothering me, even though it's kind of in a position that normally would tend to bother me. And then it also pushes the balance point further up towards the tip, so it gives it a very lively feel, which on a knife this big with nearly 4 inches of blade is pretty cool. Pretty nice feeling in hand. But we haven't even talked about arguably the most exciting thing about this version of the Pariah, which is manual action. Heretic is known for their automatics, but they are no slouch when it comes to manual action too. Very nicely done. Ball bearing to the pivot for super smooth action. Very snappy button lock. I like that the button is somewhat oversized. Everything about this knife is just a little bigger than it maybe needs to be, which is not a criticism, but just an expression of how over the top it is and how big it feels. The pivot hardware is oversized. You got the pivot collar that visually makes it even bigger. Very chunky blade stock here. It's smooth, it swings like a guillotine. The hole is oversized. Just a big, bold knife that, thanks to the G10 handles and the taper, feels a lot livelier than its kind of volume would lead you to think. Next up are a couple of new knives from one of the most impressive new brands that we've added lately here at the Knife Center. That brand is North Mountain Blade, and this is the BBNM. This was designed, I should say, by Dwayne Dwyer, who was one half of Strider Knives. He and Mick Strider formed their own companies, but you can still see quite a bit of that SNG type design heritage in this knife here. This has its own character though. It's definitely a different knife. It feels different in hand. I guess I would call this a spin-off of that original knife platform. But let's talk about the specs. We've got 3.6 inches of SLD Magic steel, titanium frame lock on one side, carbon fiber on the other, and a price of $320. The thing that I think is special about this knife is that it, more than any other spin-off of that original SNG, captures what made that knife so special, and that is its mix of high and low. And by that I mean very advanced, kind of high, almost like high concept ergonomics and silhouette and design, but very low kind of simplicity and straightforwardness to the way that it's built. If you've handled one of those original SNGs, you know that there is a sort of strength in its crudeness. And I want to be careful with the word crudeness here, because they were very expertly ground and they were nicely put together. But I mean, they were many hundreds of dollars and shipped in a plastic bag. It was part of their appeal. They were meant to be taken and used, and it felt that way as soon as you picked one up. And this collaboration has that same character. It feels very smooth and tough and solid. It's not a drop shut knife. The frame lock kind of tension is rather strong. So it's not a fidget friendly knife. It's meant to be used. We've got a frame lock, a lock bar stabilizer there to keep everything, reinforced in every direction. One of the original things that made the SNG so tough back in the day was the fact that it insisted on using external stop pins, even in addition to the opening hole. That still continues here. Really oversized hardware all around. These have got to be at least T8 Torx screws. No T6 to be found anywhere on this thing. Yeah, it has a bit of that rough and tumble character. Maybe that's probably better than crude. And yet, it's very, very nicely put together, and yeah, has that elevated materials and construction at the same time. I can see why the SNG has been such an enduring design. It's because of that really cool mix of things that give it a special feel. And yeah, I'm honestly really impressed. I think this BBNM has captured that more than any other knife other than the originals that I can think of. But before we move on to the next knife, let me tell you about this blade steel here, because it's something I didn't know anything about before I researched for this video. SLD Magic is a Japanese-made tool steel. Here, it's actually a Sanmai construction, so it's SLD Magic at the core that's been brazed or maybe pattern welded. I'm not sure exactly how they put it together, but it's basically been fused in the center of this blade, giving you a really cool, almost Hamon-like look along the edge. It's in a similar family to D2, but with less chromium and carbon, meaning that it is tougher and should have maybe just a touch less edge retention. So it is a great steel for knives. User reports have been very positive on it. A good, tough, fine-grained steel is always a good thing to have on a tough knife like this. Next from North Mountain Blade is the Jellyfish, and this might be my pick of their whole lineup so far. Part of what makes this new brand so impressive is their level of attention to detail. The finish work is world-class here. Look at the hand satin on the blade. It's perfectly done, very smooth to the touch. The grind is nice and thin behind the edge. And you know, they're actually using ZDP 189 clad steel here. So that the core of that edge there is extremely hard, and that can make it a big challenge to give a hand satin finish like this in the first place. So the fact they were able to pull it off and make it look so consistent and clean. In fact, they care so much about the final product that they're even going to such lengths as making their own carbon fiber composites. I believe this version uses a silver twill that's been sourced from elsewhere, but some of the other exotic carbon fibers that they're putting on their knives are being made in-house, which is really, really cool, and it allows them to offer looks and patterns that you won't find on any other knife. So let's talk about this one for a second. The Jellyfish, $240, ZDP 189 steel, as I said, and a selection of handles. This one has G10 with silver twill inlays. It's a front flipper, nice flipper tab at the top there for plenty of leverage to get that thing open. I guess it's technically milled. It's a milled clip, but it's got a good springiness to it, like a bent clip, and a titanium liner lock, holding things secure. Kind of a classic silhouette with a bit more flair to the blade there with the recurved tanto, but shades of traditional, modern execution, a excellent EDC knife for sure. Speaking of shades of traditional with modern execution, I had to put this next to it. This is the Finch Roadrunner. Very cool. We haven't seen this in over a year at least. The last time the Roadrunner came through, it was actually a totally different knife. It was a liner lock flipper. It was about a ½ inch more blade. This new Roadrunner Gen 2 is a button lock with 3 inches of 154 cm steel, and it comes in at $149. This one has an almost stiletto or switchblade look to it, especially with that button lock, but it is a manual flipper, very nicely executed there. Nice snappy action with a somewhat discreet little button that is nicely recessed as well, so there's not a lot of danger of accidentally unlocking it while this knife is in use. These come with stainless steel frame and bolsters and a selection of inlays. I believe there's a burlap micarta, bone, and this cool and very wild carbon fiber here. I'm actually glad Thomas pulled this one off the shelf. I was personally drawn to the bone at first, but I'm glad he picked this one because in person, I really actually like it a bit more than the pictures. I think it's somewhat more toned down in real life than it looks in the pictures. The white isn't quite so bright. It's got almost a tan tone to it instead of that bright white. I don't know, I think it's a little more cohesive in person, and I am definitely digging it now that I got a chance to check it out in hand. For carry, we've got a nice milled clip. Yeah, the Roadrunner is just cool. This style of stiletto or boot knife silhouette never goes out of style. Just cool. Okay, the latest release from Jack Wolf will be available tomorrow if you're seeing this on Thursday. These are going to go live on Friday, April 18th. And I would show up early for this one if I were you. This is one of the coolest Jack Wolves in some time, in my humble opinion. This right here is the Vampire FIXedc. It is, of course, a fixed blade. It comes in at $234.99 with 3 inches of S90V steel and a selection of very cool handles and finish options. Now, if you know Jack Wolf, you know that the packaging is a big part of the experience of owning one of these awesome knives. And the fixed blades, I like what's going on with this. This is not a VHS copy of a B movie.
I watch it.
Although, yeah, this would be a lot of fun to watch, I'm sure. Check out the vampire going on there. What we have is, instead, a VHS-sized knife box. Let me show you the sheath on this too. Right here, it's set up for pocket carry. Nice leather sheath. I'm not going to put the knife in because I don't want to. This sheath needs to be broken in, and it's going to be quite tight on your knife until you break it in. But very nicely integrated pocket clip there. Being symmetrical, it's also totally ambidextrous, and I think this whole package makes for a great pocket fixed blade option. Let me grab the titanium handled version so we can take a little closer look at one of the other variants. These have full tang construction, and the handle silhouette here, visually it looks like this might be a little spiky perhaps in the hand. I don't know, maybe you didn't assume that, but I think I did. I'm happy to report though that in hand it does not feel that way at all. The proportions of this are such that your thumb is either kind of here ahead of that little protuberance, or it kind of splits your fingers. So I think it actually adds a bit of purchase there. It doesn't get in the way at all, even in a fisted grip. You know, it's a small enough knife that it kind of just adds to the volume. It doesn't bother me or cause a hot spot at all. So this knife is very stylish, nicely symmetrical, but still totally usable as well. They all also feature lanyards with a material and color matched lanyard bead. This one has the blasted titanium. This one here has a red anodized aluminum to match these awesome bloody Kharonite scales. Man, if you really want the vampire look, this has got to be the one for you, right? Black and red, super sick. Moving on up to a full-sized fixed blade here. This is the new Halfbreed Blades Medium Infantry Gen 2. So let me tell you about what is new for Gen 2 with this one. First of all, and perhaps most significantly, we've got a whole new blade steel. These have K340 blade steel. They come in at $265 and are available with a bunch of different colors and edge configurations to suit your needs. The medium infantry blade has always been kind of a classic tactical design. You can see from the fact that it has a double guard here, the aggressive sculpting on the handle. This thing is about texture, it's about retention in the hand. You've got I wouldn't say sharpened, but quite a beveled pommel there for amplifying your force in a strike, and 5.3 inches of blade. If you're familiar with the original version, this may not look all that different, but it's actually more than just the blade steel that's changed. The handle profile has also been tweaked. I think this scallop is a little different back here. I think there's a little more volume in the handle here. Whatever the changes were precisely, I think they were definitely positive changes. I feel very locked in, but not locked down, if you know what I mean. These scallops are not capturing my fingers, but they are kind of guiding them into a very reassuring grip. And it's still got enough meat in the palm to work in different grips as well. K340 steel is not super common, but chemically it's actually somewhat similar to that SLD Magic in that it is a tweaked version of D2 that lowers the amount of chromium and carbon to increase the toughness. It's not going to be brittle. It's actually going to have toughness on par or better with something like 3V. Very, very excellent stuff. And I think for those who have been asking for a half-breed in a tougher steel, K340 is exactly what you've been asking for.
I like D2 more.
D2 more. You need to get into steel branding, Thomas. We can't have these just random characters going on anymore. Let's talk about the sheath though. Right here, I can't remember if this is new for the Gen 2 or when exactly they started doing these molded sheaths, but they're very nicely done. They snap in place. They're lighter weight than, or kind of lower profile, than comparable Kydex versions. You've got a nice ramp there for pushing off, and right out of the box, several ways to attach it. You've got these dots, MOLLE compatible strips, or this locking belt clip here. Just slide that to the side, push up to unlock. There you go. I appreciate that Halfbreed gives you options right out of the box, so no matter how you want to carry this thing, you're going to be good to go. The last brand here on the table is Work Tough gear, and we're going to go from big to bigger. Let's start with the Steadfast. This comes in at $168.95 and features 5.5 inches of K329 blade steel, sculpted G10 handles. Now, just because it's right here on the table, I can't help but compare these two knives. The Steadfast, as compared to the Halfbreed blades, we've got a bit of the same use case, I guess you could say, but the formula has been rebalanced to dial down the pure tactical aggression and dial up the comfort a little bit. So this knife is definitely a tough and somewhat aggressive package with its clip point and swedge, bringing out that tip to an aggressively thin and precision-oriented little poker there. The handle is quite comfortable. It's not nearly so textured or locked in. It's a very reassuring grip for sure, and it's well-sized for, I would say, 99% of hands. Works great in a reverse grip. Nice flare there at the end to capture your hand if you're gonna choke back a little bit, get some chopping done. This is a very broadly useful fixed blade. Whether you're gonna put its extreme thickness to use in a survival situation, or carry it as a heavy-duty belt knife, it can kind of flex into all sorts of different roles. If you know Work Tough knives, you know that one thing they do particularly well is their edge geometry. Here on the Steadfast, it's actually a little thinner than some of their ultra tough choppers, as I think you'd want and expect it to be, but it's still a tough, hand-sharpened, convex grind there at the edge. So you're gonna have lots of durability. It's gonna be very easy to strop back rather than needing to resharpen. And as you can see, I mean, it's just brilliantly polished and highly refined. So nicely done. Work Tuff really focuses on giving you something that you can just take right out of the sheath and use at the very highest level. I always like when I can get a knife sharper than it came from the factory, and with Work Tuff, I'm not always sure that I can do that. And that is a compliment, you know? You should be impressed when you get an awesome new knife with just what it can do. And I think the Work Tuff Steadfast aims to impress. Moving on up to the middle child in this Work Tuff trio here. This is the Elbrus Gen 2. We've got 6.9 inches of K329 steel. Comes in at $178.95, excuse me. And sculpted and milled and texturized G10 handles. Very cool. I can't remember if I've seen the Elbrus Gen 1, but I imagine we did have them at some point. They are, of course, gone now, and that brings me to something about Work Tuff that I'd like to call out, which is that they're actually quite a small brand. They are not able to produce enough product to keep everything in stock constantly, which means small batches of stuff comes through and sells out relatively quickly. Usually they'll iterate or kind of redo their most popular knives, but if you see something sweet that you like from Work Tuff, jump while you have the chance, because it won't be coming around for a good long time. Let's talk about the Elbrus. You know, it's an all-rounder, but it's a lot bigger. You know, this is stretching for me personally what I would consider to be a belt knife. With just under 7 inches of blade, we're really getting up there, but the blade shape is got to do it all character. You know, the nice high flat grind, Work Tuff's very you know, refined edge geometry that I was just singing its praises of. Some cool style there with the fuller. And for a knife this big from Work Tuff, which usually leans to the extreme with the sheer size and thickness of their blades, the blade stock here feels relatively thin. So it doesn't have that huge chopping kind of character to it. You could definitely do it, and the flare at the end of the handle there is very secure for that choke back chopping grip. But, you know, I think this would be a decent slicer. A camp kitchen knife even. You can kind of choke up into that choil. Let's see, the balance point is right behind the guard there. So pretty balanced in that forward position. It doesn't feel all that heavy despite its size. So, you know, even though I was saying this was pushing it for a belt knife, I don't think this would be all that uncomfortable to take on a nice hiking trip, for example. Handle scales are really nicely contoured here. You got that kind of egg-like shape that tapers towards the belly of the handle. Very, very reassuring grip and easy to move between grips as well. If you don't like the kind of black stonewash finish here, it's available in a bunch of other options with different handle colors as well. The sheath on this and all the other Work Tuffs you'll see today, nicely executed kydex, snaps in with audible authority. And the big boy is none other than the Work Tuff Commander. Look at this thing. I'm gonna have to use two hands for a minute here because this is thicker and longer than any other knife on the table. Heavier too. Boy, 1 pound, 7.2 ounces. That's without the sheath. So this has some mass to it for sure. You wanna talk about chopping character. Whew. This thing is headed towards the ground with velocity. Very cool. What a beast of a blade here. This is designed by ODM Knives, and yeah, Work Tuff makes great fixed blades, but what they do best, undoubtedly, I think, is these monsters. The edge is significantly thicker than those other knives, but it's tempered by their convex edge geometry. You can still kind of carve and slice with this thing, even though it's massively, massively tough and incredibly strong thanks to its geometry. Interesting that it also has a crowned spine here, so that jimping is softened a little bit. It's still aggressive enough to catch the finger, but if you were to choke up in this grip, I like that the crown spine kind of eases its impact on the inside of your hand there. Nicely considered detail on a knife that didn't have to be so comfortable in this grip, you know? This is the kind of thing that I would be mostly just swinging around and, you know, cleaning limbs with, but clearly it was meant to do more than just that. Nice girthy handle here. Definitely the biggest on the table by far. Even in gloves, I have no problem moving around on this thing. Bit of a flare there at the end for chopping, although this doesn't really need to choke back to chop. And this sharpened or this pointy pommel at the end is going to be getting in the way a little bit if you really choke back. But like I said, you don't need to. If you want to chop, just grab this thing, let gravity do the work. Well, that's it for this edition of New Knives of the Week. Thanks for sticking around with us till the end here. Remember, if you see anything you like on this table, you can find links to it in the description that are going to take you to KnifeCenter.com. Don't forget about our Sezzle payment option as well, if you want to split any of these larger purchases up into smaller chunks and get the knife straight away. With that, I've been Seth V. That's Thomas behind the camera. We'll see you in the next one.